Dr. Karim has also done extensive surveys of the specific types of land energies that are present at Giza Plateau that they then built the pyramids on. So this shows you a particular grid structure of a very high quality of vibrational energy that we referred to earlier as the BG3, the quality of centered energy. This centered energy quality of the BG3 is something that creates an entire grid of energy across Giza Plateau, and that is particularly concentrated in locations underneath the pyramids and sometimes even at some of the underground chambers that you reach from the pyramids through underground tunnels. So these three vibrational qualities that Dr. Karim identified can be talked about either through modern terms that have an identifiable basis to them in a type of vibrational science concept, or they can be described according to concepts known to classical spiritual traditions, which also had an understanding of these energies. So one of these energies that makes up the three vibrational qualities that balance all living energy systems is this quality that the French found, this carrier wave of energy that they called negative green. Another is one that we refer to in a technical basis as the higher harmonic of ultraviolet. It is in resonance with ultraviolet light and energy on the physical plane, but it's on a higher harmonic level. Classical spiritual traditions might refer to this energy as the spiritual light, or they might refer to it as the atmosphere of the angels. The third component, and considered to be in some ways the highest of the three components of this balancing force, is the higher harmonic of gold. The higher harmonic of gold is connected to physical gold and is the reason why so many classical traditions used physical gold in their spiritual mysteries. Whether it's in South America or Egypt or Asia, you constantly see the use of gold, but it's not for the physical aspect of it, but because it resonates with something on a higher level. This higher harmonic of gold energy was identified by Dr. Karim as having a strong effect on vitalizing the human immune system and activating many important functions in the human energy field and consciousness. But it's also something known to classical traditions. It is the same gold energy that you see around the heads and the bodies of the saints in religious depictions all over the world. And this higher harmonic of gold energy was also an energy connected in the Egyptian mysteries to the plane of divine wisdom, a spiritual plane very close to the Godhead at a very high divine level. So we can understand these things either in a spiritual context or in more of a vibrational science context, but they're really the same unity. Now, this balancing force that Dr. Karim identified manifests in particular ways. And to really understand how we can engineer structures, build a building, create a form so that it has specific vibrational qualities requires us to change our perspective on how energies connect to form. Dr. Karim refers to our work as being a sculptor of space. When we form space in a particular way, we then form it also to create specific vibrational harmonics that will affect every person that ever enters into that location. And so this balancing force will naturally appear of its own accord around certain geometric forms. In the form of a rotational movement or a circle, it appears in the very center of the circle. In the biogeometry foundation training, after we teach people how to test these different vibrational qualities, we will give them the form of a drawn circle and say, I want you to use these tools and show me where you find the BG3 energy. And they find it coming from the very center of the circle. This BG3 energy is in the center of all structures, and there are particular methods we can use to amplify and distribute its energy. So this gives us the classical initiation diagram that you see on this slide of a point in the center of a circle. If you study with the Rosicrucians and Freemasons, they'll tell you the point in the center of the circle is the symbol of the Godhead. If you study astrology, they'll say that it is the symbol of the sun. If you study alchemy, they'll say it's the symbol of gold. It is all these things and more. This is a circuit diagram showing you how to connect to all of these things. And the higher harmonic of gold and the whole BG3 is found emitted from the center of these circular or rotational forms. If you have straight line forms, like the cross that you see on the slide, then this balancing force will naturally appear at the perfect balance point moving into those forms. because this balancing energy appears at the balance point, and it actually works with all living energy systems to balance those living energy systems. But to understand how this works, once again, requires us to change our frame of reference to where the living vibrational world around us is in constant dynamic interaction with us, based on how we form the world around us, and also related to what we do with our own energetic field, with our thoughts, emotions, etc. So this gives you some very slight insight into the way that these energies interact with geometric forms. This is just really the very beginning of work in biogeometry. Dr. Karim has done a tremendous amount of work looking at the way that specific types of vibrational waves and wavelengths will create vibrational effects and affect living beings. One aspect of this is in the way that we can actually change the vibrational qualities within electromagnetic waves. And you can actually change the biological effect of electromagnetic waves to be biologically helpful to human beings and not harmful based on how you shape the wave. The wave will have a specific shape to it based on the amplitude or height of the wave and the wavelength, as seen on the right-hand side of this diagram. In a simpler manifestation, this is also connected to the types of vibrational qualities that you get inside any structure, based on things like the height of the room and the length of the room and the width of the room. These will create specific wavelengths that are capped standing waves within that location that, depending on their particular size and structure, will create vibrational harmonics that are supportive or harmful to living beings within that structure. Dr. Karim has completed a complete system of vibrational energetics where you can use specific number qualities together in something he calls the modular system. And even if you know nothing about biogeometry, if you simply design forms according to these specific numbers and combinations, they will automatically give you beneficial BG3 energy qualities. So Dr. Karim's research in understanding the way that geometric forms emit specific types of vibrational qualities that affect living beings. The French called this quality of emission of waves, they called it shape-caused waves, because the shape literally emits the wave. And this work was then validated at the Egyptian National Research Center when they had Dr. Karim come and they gave him the challenge of having 2 Petri dishes with microorganisms in them. That was a fast replicating yeast, and they asked Dr. Karim to kill all the microorganisms in one Petri dish with a simple geometric form and nothing else, and leave the other untouched. And to give you some sense of the type of person Dr. Karim is, he said, biogeometry is not for killing, and I'm not going to kill anything. What I will do is I will put a simple geometric form and nothing else over one of the cell cultures and completely paralyze all of its life activity. It'll be in a state of suspended animation until I remove the geometric form. The other one that I leave alone will continue to replicate naturally. And what you see on this slide is the report from the Egyptian National Research Center from this evaluation, where the head of the Department of Microbial Chemistry, Dr. Badr al-Din, wrote the report and said, Dr. Karim accomplished exactly what he said he could do, that some type of subtle radiation from the geometric form completely suspended the life activity in the dish that he covered while the other replicated normally, and we cannot explain this effect through our current knowledge in contemporary science and medicine, and it's a top priority for us to begin to research this. At that point, the Egyptian National Research Center started a research project under Dr. Karim to study the effect of geometric forms on life functions. And Dr. Karim headed this up for quite some time, and they had many remarkable discoveries. Another one of Dr. Karim's discoveries is that through using radiesthesia to be able to tune to specific vibrations and track them as they move through the living bodies of human beings, animals, etc., he could actually track the way that specific energies move inside the human body. And he called these movements of dynamic energy in the body biosignatures. There are also biosignatures that are not linked to movements in the body, but within the human energy field on a greater basis. But sticking right now to the biosignatures in the body, what you see on these slides are the energy movement patterns that Dr. Karim identified in specific organ systems of the body. And these energy movement patterns can actually be provided to people as biosignatures to help to harmonize different energetic things in their energetic field and with their organ function. Now, Dr. Karim is an architect and not a medical doctor. Dr. Karim never makes any medical claims. What Dr. Karim does is he works with medical professionals who then test his work, and any claims will come from them. So an example of the testing of biosignatures for their efficacy was with the Egyptian National Hepatitis C Research Project, a research project paid for by the Egyptian government, in which they studied all possible suggested remedies for hepatitis C, which is a liver-based illness that is epidemic in North Africa. And this particular research was conducted at Al-Azhar University, which is one of the oldest universities in the world, and again paid for and sponsored by the Egyptian government. They had multiple things they were testing with different control groups. So one group would receive interferon, another would receive some other type of pharmaceutical, another would receive Chinese medicine. And one group was given to Dr. Karim, and he simply gave them a particular medallion to wear that had specific biosignatures that he had identified as being helpful for people with hepatitis C. Again, he made no medical claims. He just said, I don't even want to meet the people. Otherwise, you'll claim I had some type of effect on them. Just give them the medallion to wear, and we'll see what happens. At the end of the first 6 months of the project, the head of the research project went on Egyptian national television and announced that of everything that they tested, by far the best effect that they got was with the control group that did nothing other than wear Dr. Karim's biosignature medallion with these particular biosignatures for Hep C. They had an average 90% normalization of their enzyme levels, and that was much better than anything else tested. Number 2 was interferon, but it was more in the 30% range, and many people had toxic effects and had to get off of it because of that. So it was a very, very positive result showing the way that the biosignatures did have energetic effects, although, according to modern science and medicine, these simple geometric forms shouldn't do anything. But they did have a profound effect, and in fact, many people that were in that particular group also had completely clean blood work after 6 months. There was no Hep C left in their blood work. And I asked Dr. Karim once, how come some of the people, everybody benefited with their enzyme counts, but some people at the end had no Hep C left in their blood, and some did. Dr. Karim said, because I was only allowed to give them the medallion. I was not allowed to work on their home. If I wanted to get more general clearance, I would have to balance the energy where they lived, as well as the energy directly on their body with the medallion. And those are 2 aspects we always address in biogeometry. We are an open energy system, constantly exchanging energy and information with our environment. The electromagnetic fields, possible toxic earth energies, chemicals, etc. of our environment will affect us, and they do need to be balanced, as well as a direct balancing of the human energy field and organ structure itself. So this connects to Dr. Karim's concept of energy, shape, and function. With these biosignature patterns, to understand how they work, don't look at them as static forms. Look at them as a pattern that energy is moving constantly and dynamically within. Energy moves into a shape, and energy is actually programmed to perform a specific function by the shape it moves into. Energy moves into a shape, and the shape determines the function. That gives us a very simple equation in biogeometry for practical work. Energy plus shape equals function. And this is an earlier version of the biosignature medallion that I wanted to show you, because when you see these things at a normal size, you can't really tell what's on there. They look like little squiggly lines. But blown up, you can see that every one is a very specific linear energetic movement pattern. They're actually 3-dimensional patterns that Dr. Karim has simplified to 2-dimensional to be able to put them onto a surface so that they can be worn. Dr. Karim has also done numerous projects, not just with human beings, but with animals, with plants, etc. And just to touch on a couple of these, in one project he worked with a chick farm, had them stop giving the chicks antibiotics and different types of artificial hormones, and instead simply created strong concentrations of BG3 around them. They found that the chickens grew faster, healthier, without any of the normal methods, and actually their flesh, when they were later consumed for food, were actually full of this BG3 energy. He's also done research into the growing of crops, and in one of the many projects he's done, on the Red Sea, he was given the challenge, can you help us to grow sweet potatoes in salt water? Normally, sweet potatoes and other crops will not grow in salt water. But taking the salt out of the Red Sea is an extremely expensive process of desalinization. So, to make a long story short, Dr. Karim took the salt water straight from the Red Sea and ran it through particular shapes of containers and channels that infused the water with this Bg3 balancing energy, and then applied it to the growing of the sweet potatoes. So what you see on these slides is, on the left-hand side, the normal growth of a control normal sweet potato grown with fresh water. Then the one to the right of it is a sweet potato that didn't really grow at all through normal salt water, because you can't normally grow crops with salt water. But at the bottom, you see a sweet potato grown with salt water that did not have any of the salt taken out of it, but it simply had been held within Bg3 containers and run through Bg3 channels to change its vibrational quality. And so Dr. Karim doesn't make any claims for this, but it shows that the vibrational quality of the water appears to be able to overcome even the actual chemical constituents of the water, which is a remarkable finding. Dr. Karim has also worked with Dr. Masaru Emoto, who's done much in the field of water research and water crystallization that you may be aware of. And so with Dr. Karim's development of the cube that you see in the upper left-hand corner, this creates a vibrational field around it that is quite strong, simply by having it in the same location as the water to take the crystallization photographs. It crystallized the water just by being in the same room. And when Masaru Emoto saw the crystallization photographs, what you might not know about Emoto's method is that when they take these water crystallization pictures, as you might have seen in his work if you're familiar with it, they actually take a whole series of different crystallization pictures, and no two are the same. And what Emoto said about the work is that Dr. Karim's biogeometry methods seem to create some of the most standardized beneficial crystallizations of the water of anything that he ever tested. Now the next project is the EMF protection project that Dr. Karim did in Switzerland. And so one of the major focuses in recent times for biogeometry has been dealing with the danger of electromagnetic fields. In fact, we're seeing an increasing number of people that are highly electromagnetic hypersensitive coming to us for help. Because normally when they go to medical doctors, they're told it's all in your head, or there's nothing to it, or there's nothing we can do for you. But people are getting increasing amounts of problems from the increasing density of electromagnetic fields and its effect on the nervous system. So Dr. Karim was asked to help in Hamburg, Switzerland, in a particular situation in which they had put a very large cell tower on the top of a rather short Roman church tower, Roman Catholic Church belfry tower in the middle of the city of Hamburg, Switzerland. And the emission from it was so strong that you immediately saw problems in the town. And you saw the birds and the animals that could leave left the area. The animals that were kept in containment acted extremely agitated. And many of the people in the city actually ended up living in their root cellars. We actually have films from Swiss National News television showing people living in their root cellars because the radiation was too strong for them. And when they asked the government to help them with the problem with the cell tower, they said it's within acceptable limits, we can't do anything for you. Dr. Karim came to town, as is shown in these particular German language Swiss newspapers on the slide, and was able to completely change the vibrational quality and its biological effects. Dr. Karim was not only given the key to the city by the Hamburg Town Council, but the Hamburg Town Council petitioned the national government of Switzerland to please make the same corrections everywhere in Switzerland. Dr. Karim then replicated the project under the observation of the Swiss government in another location in Switzerland called Hirschberg, Switzerland. And again, the project was successful. So we have methods within biogeometry to be able to change the biological effects of electromagnetic fields. And among these methods are the use of particular types of forms that will create a change in the biological effect, but will not change what is shown on an electromagnetic meter. Now, the difficulty of this is that, on the one hand, they want you to show them in scientific authorities that you have changed the form of the wave on an electromagnetic meter, because that's what they test to see if any change has taken place. But if you do change what's shown in an electromagnetic meter, then the technology will no longer work. Your cell phone won't work. None of our modern communication or energy technologies will work if you change or tamper with the waveform. But what Dr. Karim identified is that the biological effect that we get from these corrections is actually taking place on other plane structures. Now, this is something we don't normally talk about in general public lectures, first introducing biogeometry, because it's beginning to get into more esoteric waters. This is an advanced topic in biogeometry. But we asked Dr. Karim to come this time for a 4-day advanced seminar for students from around the world that follow his work and focus on the spiritual topics, so I'm going to mention it tonight. What you see with this diagram is a particular illustration of the way that the physical plane energies move in a cross, just like electricity and magnetism propagate at 90-degree angles to each other in the physical world. That's a known property from physics, that electricity and magnetism propagate at 90-degree angles. But the other angles around it actually connect to different planes, all the planes spoken of by classic spiritual traditions. And that's actually where we are changing these vibrational qualities that affect living beings. But it doesn't affect a simple metallic electromagnetic meter that does not participate on those levels. This illustration here is an advanced esoteric application of this concept that Dr. Karim calls the biogeometry flower of life. By knowing this particular propagation of the energies of the planes at specific angles, you can actually do a type of vibrational testing and find a specific mandala-like form of the development of any person's spiritual nature or energetic fields on any of the different planes of nature that creates these mandala-like forms. For one person, they'll be highly developed on the physical plane, not so much on the higher. Other people will be very developed on the higher planes, but not so much on the lower. And so through these types of methods of being able to track the different planes, you can find these types of phenomena. So Dr. Karim's work spans the gamut from highly practical and pragmatic vibrational applications for design, health, etc., and also getting into these very deep esoteric waters. In the very practical and pragmatic, one of the most recent projects Dr. Karim did in Egypt with the Egyptian National Research Center was dealing with the problem of nuclear radiation. And so in this particular project, what they did is they went and they found radioactive materials that are sold on the open market. So buying different types of lumber and tile and paint and things that you can actually buy on the open market that if you had a Geiger counter, you would find as radioactive. In fact, sometimes you can actually find that potting soil that you buy at the potting store is radioactive because it's allowed by federal statute to put some sludge from nuclear power plants in the potting soil. But who goes and tests these things with a Geiger counter? So they got radioactive materials and they built cages for mice from the radioactive materials at the Egyptian National Research Center. So with that work, what Dr. Karim did is he put up the cube like you see here that creates an emanation over a location of this Bg3 energy, this balancing force that he was able to identify. And the mice that were within the radioactive cages, without a cube nearby or any types of modifications to the energy, they all developed cancerous tumors on the body. But the ones that were kept in the exact same type of radioactive cages, but in a location next to the cube, none of them developed tumors on the body. Now, we're not making any medical claims based on this, because we're not medical doctors and we don't make medical claims. But this is the result that they got at the Egyptian National Research Center. Once again, it shows that these vibrational fields can have extremely powerful effects. Dr. Karim at this time is doing a lot of his work in Canada and spends much of his time in Montreal, sometimes in Toronto. This is an illustration of a recent project that Dr. Karim did in designing a house in Toronto with two of his co-workers, both of whom are also here for this particular conference. James Thompson with the landscape architecture and Pier Paolo Alberghini with the architecture. And everything in this house is biogeometrically balanced. It contains many different components of the biogeometry field in it. So as a segue to introducing Dr. Karim, he's done a lot of energetic research into different types of work done in the ancient world and how it can be applied today with how you work with these energies. So spiritual power spots are particular locations that have the BG3 energy, this balancing energy naturally, and these locations are cultivated by spiritual traditions all over the world. This is a slide showing the Sultan Hassan Mosque in Cairo, and Dr. Karim was working on the mystery of why does the mosque start, if you take a look at the slide, on one axis and then shift axis to a different orientation at a different angle. And he found the particular spiritual energy lines, the grid lines that they built the mosque on, that they were following the trajectory of these lines in the design of the building for the central axis and for the building of exterior walls. And again, this is classical knowledge that was done in the ancient world in many, many different traditions. Dr. Karim has also spoken to us before about his charting of the energy lines running through Cairo and why Tahrir Square was such an important location for the recent Egyptian revolution, with the energy lines that are running through the Sultan Hassan Mosque and from the Great Pyramid meeting at the Tahrir Square in Cairo. This is not an accident. The people that designed these cities knew the way the energy lines would run and designed them accordingly. Dr. Karim has also done a remarkable body of research where he has studied the hidden energetic grids that are behind the illustrations on the Egyptian temple walls. And he identified something called the human archetype code. The human archetype code is the actual geometric code for the human being at a spiritual level. And he found the specific pattern of this 19-level grid that they used in designing the illustrations on the Egyptian temple walls. And the extraction of that grid is shown on the right-hand side of the slide. This is actually, for us, used as an energy measurement device in advanced biogeometry and will be one of the topics that Dr. Karim is going to go into more detail on with the people that have come here to work with him over the next 4 days. And so this brings us to Dr. Karim has just recently published his first text in English, Back to a Future for Mankind, introducing the work of biogeometry. And we're very, very grateful to have him here with us today.